Good evening, everybody. I want to say thank you all once again for joining us on this Tuesday night family and friends Bible study. Listen, we are, man, 2023 is quickly moving along. We are close to the fourth month of the year. And whatever's going on this year, hope that thus far has been a blessed one for you. Hope that not only has it been blessed, but I hope it's been a time of revelation and greater insight for you all. I want to thank our brother, Dr. Tim, for teaching probably, I think it's safe for me to say, one of the most powerful messages that I've heard concerning provision, prosperity, and God's overall attitude concerning giving. If you haven't had the chance to hear that series, I want to encourage you to check out all 5 of those teachings in their entirety, because this is what I believe. I believe that they're going to help you to receive what God has already made available to you. I believe that it's going to help you to understand your response concerning prosperity and abundance. And more specifically, what I believe will happen is that you'll get a glimpse of God the Father's heart as it pertains to what he desires for us to have. We didn't have Bible study last week. However, we did have a time of corporate prayer. And one of the things that I shared during that time of corporate prayer is that without intimacy, there is information, but there's no revelation. One of the literal meanings of revelation is to make naked or to lay bare. It also is the instruction associated with things previously unknown. And so in this regard, revelation is when God not only uncovers what was hidden, but also gives us the understanding of how to put it into operation. And so during these past couple of weeks, I kept getting this imagery. I kept seeing this, the refiner's fire, and we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to go in the text as it pertains to that. I think that's in Malachi. However, I do want to quickly explain it before we get into tonight's teaching. The refiner's fire, it's the step in which you have your gold and your other precious metals. This is when they are refined. This is where after the metal is pulled from the earth and it's crushed, and before it's melted, what happens is it's placed in this mold in which it's going to take the shape and form of. And while in this mold, then it begins the melting process. And as these precious metals are being melted, they begin to scrape off what's called the dross, dross. Excuse me if I pronounced it wrong. But in essence, these are the impurities that were in that metal. They come to the top and then they begin to scrape it off. And what I find powerful about this imagery is that we have all gone through a process. When you look at the course of your life, I imagine that you can see where things may have been difficult. We got pulled out of our comfort zones. We felt like we were being crushed. And then ultimately we were reshaped by fire. The presence of God from a biblical standpoint, if you ever do a study on symbology, fire in the Bible often represents the presence of God. If you think about the scripture of Moses in the burning bush, how God led the children of Israel out of the wilderness by a pillar of fire. Even Hebrews 12 says that our God is a consuming fire. And so as we encounter his presence, the light shines on the dark areas within us. It touches those things that need to be refined. The impurities of our thoughts come to surface when the word begins to do its part of exposing those things within our own selves. Darkness, from a biblical standpoint, does not always represent wickedness. A lot of times what darkness represents is ignorance or lack of understanding. And so it's my hope that every time we get together on this platform or wherever you are in your houses of worship, that when you get in the face of God, I hope that when you hear these teachings, that it compels you to get into the face of God, to get the revelation of the matter. Proverbs 4:7 says, wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. And with all you're getting, get understanding. It doesn't make any sense for us to hear these words that God has set aside, that he's intentionally speaking to us, and for us to leave unchanged, for us to leave the same. Once again, I want you to give that consideration every time we get together, that this is another opportunity to meet God, to have an encounter with God. I'm not saying that this is the only encounter, because I know that you can have an encounter with God right where you're at, right where you're seated, in the comfort of your own home. If you would, we're going to jump right into tonight's teaching. We're starting a new series entitled I'm Brand New. We're going to be going with this all the way up until Holy Week, the week of Resurrection Sunday. But nevertheless, if you would turn with me to Genesis 37. I'm going to do a little reading tonight. I want to say thank you for everybody who's in the Zoom group, as well as those who are joining us as well on social media. Thank you for your time tonight. This is Genesis 37. I'm going to read verse 1 through 8. Then after that, I'm going to jump down to verse 12. Also, I want you to put your finger on Genesis 42. And so we're going to let the Lord lead us in this tonight. Genesis 37, verse 1 through 8, and it reads, Now when Jacob dwelt in the land of Canaan, this is the history of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report of them to his father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. Also, he made him a tunic of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. Now Joseph had a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. So he said to them, Please hear this dream which I have dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. Then behold, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And indeed, your sheaves stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf. That joke is kind of bold. And his brothers said to him, Shall you indeed reign over us, or shall you indeed have dominion over us? So they hated him even more for his dreams and his words. I'm going to read that part one more time. So they hated him even more for his dreams and his words. Dropping down to verse 12. Then his brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, Are not your brothers feeding the flock in Shechem? Come, I will send you to them. So he said to him, Here I am. Then he said to him, Please go and see if it is well with your brothers and well with the flock, and bring back word to me. So he went out to the valley of Hebron and went to Shechem. Now certain man found him, and there he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, What are you seeking? So he said, I am seeking my brothers. Please tell me where they are feeding their flocks. And the man said, They have departed from here. I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. Now when they saw him afar off, even before he came near them, they conspired against him to kill him. Then they said to one another, Look, this dreamer is coming. So therefore, let us now kill him and cast him into some pit, and we shall say, Some wild beast has devoured him. We shall see what will become of his dreams. Jumping right over to Genesis 42. And I'm going to read verse 8 through 9. Genesis 42, 8 through 9. So Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. Then Joseph remembered the dreams which he had dreamed about them and said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of this land." For a thought tonight, I want to put before you when the familiar becomes foreign. Excuse me. When the familiar becomes foreign. One of the things that I try to do is remain mindful of respecting that everyone has a right to their process. I mentioned that word earlier. I say that word quite often. For me, what that means is that everyone has the right to go through something that ultimately helps them to develop in the person that they are becoming. There have been circumstances, speaking for myself, and events that have all shaped our lives. And I think we can all agree to that. Whether good, bad, or ugly, I can look back and see God throughout whatever it is that I went through or whatever it was that I was going through. Now, here's the thing. The experiences do not make God more God in my life. God is my life, so the experiences don't make him more God. God is, regardless of what I go through. However, I understand that through my situations, there's opportunity for him to get glory. For example, you all can reference John chapter 9, as well as John chapter 11 and 4. This was a story about the man who was born with a condition. He was born blind, and they said, who sinned? And he said, no one sinned, referencing the parents. And he said, this was set up so that God will be glorified. And even when you think about Lazarus, how he died, and this was an opportunity for God to get glory. And so where we pick up in the story with Joseph, we see a man that went through some of the worst experiences that I believe a person can face. He was betrayed by his family. His brothers wanted to kill him, but they settled for selling him into slavery. They were jealous about how the father treated him. Spiritually speaking, for many of you, I would say that there are probably people jealous of how the father treats you, but I'm gonna leave that alone. Eventually, what happens with Joseph is that he's bought by a decent man, Potiphar, and in Potiphar's house, he becomes a trusted steward. He gains this trust. He has this new responsibility, only to be lied upon by Potiphar's wife. And this lie about him attempting to rape her ultimately leads him to being thrown into prison. Now, there are some accounts that suggest that Joseph was in prison for at least 12 years. And I want you to think about that. He's in prison for 12 years on the basis of a lie. And I can only imagine that in that period of time, Joseph is probably, asking himself, how did I end up here? One day I was getting the fresh wool jacket from my dad, and I was good to go, and I was in a pit. I was sold into slavery by people in my own house who were supposed to love me, but they hated me. And now I'm in prison. Now, you could say that, hey, maybe jealousy led to this chain of events, but the reality is that the course of Joseph's life is expressly altered because Joseph had the courage to believe what he saw about himself. If you trace it all the way back to the dream, the references, Joseph dared to believe what he was seeing concerning his life. And he trusted his dream to people who lacked vision for themselves. And as a result, they despised him for it. He was hated on by people who had the ability to tap into a vision for their own selves, but they chose to hate him for the vision that he had. I try to encourage people often, even with our Zoom group, Y'all have heard me say this a number of times, and I'll continue to say it. We should get into the face of God so that you can get a vision for your life. I don't do this just because it's a good practice. I do this because you need a vision that will help keep you focused, even when everything around you says otherwise. Because the reality is that we will face obstacles and consequences in life. That's a part of life. It rains on the just as well as the unjust. But in those times of adversity, what keeps us going? And I believe that if you have a vision, a God-given vision, that will help keep you grounded even in the face of that adversity. And so nevertheless, what we see with Joseph is that after all those years in prison, Joseph is finally brought to this place of prominence. He's what we pick up in, actually, I believe this is in 41. And then as you continue to 42, by the time Joseph is seeing his brothers, Joseph is actually the second in command in Egypt. Literally the only person that supersedes him is the Pharaoh. And so now he's in this position of prominence, and he's given this very rare gift. And that rare gift is the opportunity to get revenge. Now, I can't see any hands. I can't see any facial gestures, but how many of us would have taken advantage of the opportunity to get revenge when you're faced by the very same people who led you to slavery, the very same people who wanted you to die? Now, these people need you for their own survival. And so that's the situation that Joseph is encountering as he's sitting in this place of prominence, encountering his brothers. Now, if you read the text in its entirety, if you trace the life of Joseph up until he dies, you'll know that Joseph does not take advantage of this opportunity to get revenge. As a matter of fact, it's his own brothers who for the next 20 years are actually afraid that Joseph is going to kill them. But Joseph says that, hey, look, you meant it for my bad, but God meant it for my good. And this is what I'll say. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking very specifically about change. But one of the things that I want to put before you all is that a sign of change is when the offense doesn't motivate the response. The assignment does. See, a lot of us, we want to respond how we want to respond, unaware of the responsibility that God has given us. Once again, we're called ambassadors. And so please know that our response and our actions, they're not just indicative of us, but they also represent the one who sent us. And see, and as far as Joseph is concerned, when you look at his life, Joseph had every reason to respond according to the pattern of the old man, but the new nature recognizes the weight of what it is that he's carrying. 1 Corinthians 6:20, for those who are taking note, it says it this way. It says, you were brought at a price, therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. And see, I don't even have the right in this regards to negate what Jesus has already done for me. And because I align with the personhood of Jesus Christ, then I have to be mindful that in every engagement, that it's not just Dexter representing Dexter. No, Dexter is representing a kingdom. Joseph carried the responsibility of Egypt on his shoulders. And in like fashion, we carry the Spirit of God in every environment that we go into. Early, we referenced the scripture about Joseph recognizing his brothers, but they did not recognize him, and that was in Genesis 42. And I'm sure that this particular scripture is actually referencing the outward appearance of Joseph. I imagine that he took on the design and the fashion of Egypt, which was probably in stark contrast to the Hebrews. But I also believe it is referring to the manner of man that Joseph had become. And this is where we get this whole when the familiar becomes foreign. See, Joseph, when the Bible picks up, when we pick up in his story, it says that he was a lad, meaning that he was young. Most likely, I think he was a teenager, probably between the ages of 15 and 17. But now when his brothers stand before him, he's a man of responsibility, understanding that God got him to this position. Despite how ugly it was, despite what he had to go through to get there, now he stood in that position of authority. And as he saw his brothers, when you remember in that the Bible was talking about in Genesis 37, as he saw his brothers bowing before him, it says that he remembered what made it different. See, it says that in that moment, as he saw his brothers bowing, it says that he remembered his dream, a dream that he had almost 20 years prior. And it wasn't that, oh, he was boasting or bragging about it. No, it was that he believed the dream so much so to the point that eventually he saw the dream manifested in real time. He was a dreamer that believed the vision for his life. You know, ultimately, you know, when we're doing all of these Bible studies and we're getting together, it really boils down to belief. You know, I can dress it up, or whoever the speaker is, you know, we can try our best to come at a different angle. But the reality is, it's always going to boil down to, are you willing to believe what you're hearing? Or are these just fancy words falling on soil that is still hard and not receptive to what it is that God wants to do? See, these are words. These words are seeds, and these seeds are looking to produce. But here's the thing: you are the ground. Have you tilled the ground? Have you worked the ground to the point that is receptive to receive the potential that exists in that word? I'll share this and then I'll be done for the evening. Romans 12, it says that be not conformed to the things of this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. So I understand I have a message, and my message, like my mandate, is to talk about the power of change. That's the message that God has given me. The word transformation in that particular text from Romans 12, it actually is metamorpho, which we understand as metamorphosis. And the word metamorphosis actually means to become something altogether new. If you're familiar with the caterpillar, you know, and how the caterpillar eventually becomes a butterfly. The irony is that a caterpillar and a butterfly are actually two different things. See, the caterpillar is housing the potential of the butterfly, but the process helps the butterfly to come into existence. And what I'm telling you is that, yes, on the outward, you might be one thing. Your life might, the people who know you, they might have points of reference from the life that they've known you as. But the reality is that as we come into contact with the Lord, as we're being transformed in our mind, while the outward looks the same, it's the inward nature of the man that changes. That's when the new man becomes the new man on the scene. And what I want to tell you all is that we have to get to the place where we're not crippled by the convictions and the opinions of others who might attempt to drown our dreams. See, this is what they said. This is what the brothers said. They said, let us kill him and see what happens with the dream. While we might not be subject to any physical death, I dare to believe that a lot of people have allowed their dreams to die on the basis of someone else's opinions. And I'm telling you now that we are in an hour and a time where you cannot afford to be something else on the basis of trying to make someone else feel better. No, you need to get a hold of your God-given vision and you need to run with it. Because here's the thing, the vision, once again, is what's going to help you sustain in those moments of difficulty. But if your visions and your dreams become subject to the opinions of other people, then you run the risk of aborting your mission and your assignment. And now you find yourself in a pit, in a prison, with nothing that's keeping you moving forward. That's my time for tonight. For those who are joining us on social media, listen, tonight was supposed to be a slow burn because we're going to be building up on this becoming new. I'm new. I have to pull the plug now because I'm itching to share a revelation that the Lord has given me. But I know that I'm supposed to hold that till next week. And so if you want to be a part of our online Zoom community, we actually do keep the conversation going. Feel free to inbox us. I'll make sure you get that information. But with that being said, for those who are joining us on Facebook, I want to say thank you for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care and God bless.